All right, welcome to Monday. So I actually already started working. I guess I could have gone on stream sooner, but I guess I was doing something kind of boring, which is getting new test images. Well, boring / exciting, because I'm curious to see how these things test. So mostly what I've been doing up until now is I would grab the very first I would grab the very first image the headset captured. Just like the second it detected anything quality, immediately grab that image. So that way I'm not being biased. Unfortunately, though, these images I need are for pages that are already broken. They won't OCR correctly. So I'm taking a moment to actually basically grab a bunch and then see, you know, which one's going to be like this won't pick up correctly because it's going to detect that this is too small, and that this, because these are disconnected, it'll treat them as separate. So bugs I need to fix in the app of like, hey, this is actually a new chapter, so how can we like do a smarter job of detecting something like this? It's interesting, those blocks are actually pretty darn square. Yeah. So the way I'm doing that, I have a bunch of these that came in, just pulled them in. And if we look at the last ones here, how did they score? So obviously the size is going to be terrible. Rectangularity. So this last one actually, 161. So there's that 161. Whoa, why is it re-importing? So that's this one. So in theory, that one's the best one right now. This one's okay, although it's not as rectangular. It's not above the rectangularity threshold on the right side. This one's pretty good. And it's a little bit closer. So that is 228. Yeah, but see, it cuts things off, so I can't use that one. So it does fill, it is closer in, but it's not as good. And that's almost all of them. What's this one? How's this one? Nah, that one's garbage. So I think it's going to have to be this one. Does it cover everything? Oh, no it doesn't. This is kind of junk. And the problem, the reason why it's junk, is writing images to the file system is slow. So normally we wouldn't have this much of a difference between the images. Okay, so I guess because everything runs slower, I do have to be a little more diligent. Here, let me pull these over. Here, let's delete that. Let's try again. And I guess I'll cast. Might as well. So that you can watch along at home. Okay, so this is how I get test images. So I'm in here, and I guess the way I'm gonna have to do it is just hold up the book and hold it pretty steady for a bit. Hold it taut, hold it steady, and let's make sure it gets like a decent set of images. Yeah, that's probably good enough. I think that should have worked. So if I go and I pull those over, which is an ADB command to basically go pull the files, and then also, by the way, remove -rf, those folders. So clean up while we go pull. That's pulling over a lot of stuff. Oof. Okay. Okay, that's a lot more than normal. Let's see what we got so far. This might be left over from the previous runs. Or is it still right into this folder? Like, why is this slow? Ooh, okay. Let's give it a minute to think. Wow, there's a lot of images. Not normally this many. Maybe it's slower because I'm also casting. So maybe it's using more resources on the headset. And YouTube is complaining about not getting enough video stream right now. So I wonder if I'm like using more of my CPU or something right now. CPU looks fine. Wow, pulled a lot over. Okay, I just can't even touch these folders right now. Okay, this one's garbage because I can see it's just the desktop because it's grabbing. Man, it's doing a lot of file writing. Oh, that's why. Okay, let's not cast. Let's stop that. Let's kill the headset. Because we're still casting, it's going to constantly be writing images. In fact, if I go here... Oh, no, never mind, I was wrong. Alright, in any case, what did we end up with here? Really? It was off-centered like that. That seems odd to me. That one also looks like... That one looks bad. That's... And also, like, it looks a little junky there on the right. What about this one? Slightly better. I guess maybe I held it a little bit to the right. I really just want to get a clean image so that way I can see in like the ideal scenario how would we handle pages like these. So I can start fixing bugs. Here, this might be good. Nah. Darn. Okay. Darn. Okay. Yeah, junk. Alright, well, delete and try again. Here, I'll cast again this time. Why not? Okay, let's try this again. And I'll hold it at various depths. So this should be a good, reasonable depth here. Okay. That should work. And yeah, let me kill casting. See if maybe casting is the thing that's causing this to be slow. Yeah, see how quickly it finished? Okay, so casting is doing something weird. What's the last one we got? That might be good enough. What did the logs say? Did the logs like anything more than others? So again, most of these are above 100%. So I was holding it at the right depth. The best one might be 284. We're at the bottom here, right? 284. How does 284 look? Yeah, see, that looks great, but it's just because it's too close in. What about here? A little bit too low. See, that's okay. This is probably it. Maybe I'll go with this one. So that's 214. I'm calling that number. Just using the millisecond number as my mental unique identifier. This one's pretty good, not as good as the other one. And then... Ooh, this one might actually be good. No, too close. That's pretty good, but a bit far away. Yeah, let's call it. Let's go with this one. All right, so that should be all the test images I need. Let's call it new chapter is the test case name. And so all I need is these 3 raw images, and I'll drop them into the folder. And now I've got the new chapter test case, which is going to be this scenario where we're ending a chapter and we just have a little bit of text at the top. Then we start a new page with a new title. So this should be a title. There should be extra spacing here. But also, how do we handle, like, there's some italices here. We've also got this weird name indent, so that's interesting. Yeah, okay. This might be okay. There's a little bit of too much fuzziness here. But in theory, when we merge 2 images, actually, yeah, what happened when we... Yeah, we'll see. If I end up needing to get a better image crop later, I can do that. And then for the other test scenarios, I'm actually doing like a page flip. So these ones actually have a bunch of small little paragraphs. So these should be cohesive blocks. But as you can see, like, we've got these weird indents. There's all these paragraph breaks. So I want to see, like, how does it handle this? And I may have to figure out I may have to do more than just indenting. Right now I was doing basic indenting, like detecting that this paragraph starts indented and just indenting a little bit. But this is a different type. This is like a block, detecting a block indent. So I may have to see about improving that. If nothing else, it's fine. I'll leave it for now, but it means I'll have a test case in the hopper. So when I do want to go fix bugs like that, I've already got the test case ready. All right, so that should be good for now. In fact, now I can put away the VR headset and just get back to coding. And I can put these books away. It does make me realize there's another use case for this VR app. This Lovecraft book I have is huge. It's like the entire anthology ever. It's kind of heavy. So it would be nice if you had an app that basically lets you start reading a page and then put the book down so you can rest your arms. I'm sure somebody wants that. All right, so now we got these new test cases. Godot's importing those images, unfortunately. I think I can tell it to ignore them, right? But no, the test suite needs them. So these do have to get .import files for Godot, because otherwise I can't import them from this folder. All right, this isn't needed anymore. This files folder, these can all be deleted. And I might as well clean up. I don't need any of this stuff anymore. Let's clear all that out. And we got a trash can. Let's empty it. All right, so back to Godot. Okay, oh, well, let me turn this off. So let's set this to false. This is a little debug flag I have for myself. So when I run the headset, if I switch this to true, then while the headset's running, I can dump those files and get those debug images for my test harness. I want that false most of the time because I want to run in basically production mode. Is debug is a separate flag which I have as a project setting. I could do that for this debug files as well, but this is fine. I'll do that eventually. All right, so the issue I was running into then, the next thing I got to refactor is I want to merge these two functions. So I've got load expected test results and build test cases. Now, build test cases was going off of test case name going off the folder, which was a cute idea. The idea being that any folder found in this directory immediately becomes a test case. The problem with that is, that's a cool idea, right? Just drop a folder in and boom, you got a new test scenario. There is a core issue with that, though. Ooh, why is that doing that? Okay. And that is, it doesn't have expected results. And because it doesn't have expected results, it's not a real test. So I think what I want to do is use this as my control. And let me set up how I want this to work. So let me clear that out. And let me do comma there. I'll default to 100. And I'll default to 4 seconds. And I'll clear that out. And I think I'm going to add some new attributes here. So I will add skip false. So skip is going to be a new attribute that I want in here. So this way we can just turn off a test if I want to. In fact, okay. I kind of like this actually. So I got rid of that test case, but I didn't actually get rid of it because the files are still there. So let's bring it back. Where were you? You were above angled. Where's angled? There we are. Oh, wrong indenting. Okay, so what I think I want to do then is skip true. So this way, if I ever want to bring this test back, I probably will never bring it back. But if I did, I'd have it here. And I have like what I expect, what its old score was. It used to score a 4, right? It's a bad test. I probably never won it. But that's good. Now, let's... Ooh, why does that keep happening? Something's wonky with my mouse. I keep highlighting and dragging things this morning. So we have 3 new test cases. Technically we do. Technically it's 2. But okay, we've got align frames, crop 1, ankle page, good, shaky. I'll keep these in order of like the name order, I guess. So what do we have? Above shaky, we have new chapter. And new chapter is... Lovecraft. We'll call that Lovecraft. So I need to go get the text for that. So that I can compare against. And then these two are both going to be Hobbit. But they're going to be 2 different Hobbits. Right. So how do we do this? Well, we have page numbers, right? So what are our page numbers? 96. I'll call it Hobbit 96. P96. And then this one I'll call Hobbit I think it's P98. Correct? P98. And then for Lovecraft, it's going to be the same deal. Is that 581? Let me see. No, 381. 381. I wonder if that's going to OCR correctly or not. Page 381. I may go back and adjust this one as well, but this will allow for expandability. Going forward, I'll probably either stick with Lovecraft or something like The Hobbit if I'm going to add new tests that are different pages than the ones I already have. It is kind of annoying getting the page text in. I probably won't do that on stream because that's just tedious. I can get 95% the way there by just getting the OCR text, but then I got to go through and edit and fix all the mistakes by hand, and that's just tedious. Okay, now let's see. So now we have our test cases. I probably need, okay, new file. Let me do it. Why is this not giving me a... Okay, being annoying. Seriously? I can't get a... I hate Windows. Why can I not get that? Fine. Drag you over. Oh, now, okay, now you do it. Fine, great. I was like, that actually would have been pretty bad. Let's do a Vim on reading room testing test cases, and we will do a Lovecraft, well, shift insert .txt. And we'll just put a little text there. And then for the other one, Hobbit, right. Cool. So those files exist. What's inside that Harry Potter one? Test cases, Harry Potter. TBD. Okay, so I never did that one. Which might be another good book to incorporate, because I do have one sort of test case for that. Alright, so now we got the basic bones for testing. We do need the results filled in, but that's fine. Right. I could put these in a folder. Let's do that. Call it expected text. Yeah, but that's gonna blur in. Do I just leave them here like this? Maybe I do for now. I can always change that later. All right, now back to our refactor. So we were building test cases based on the folders. I think I'm just going to nuke this and delete it. We have our expected test result JSON. And we're parsing it. Okay, so let's... do this. Where are you referenced? All right, let's rename you to load test cases. And we're going to pass in these arguments. So we're going to replace that. So we're going to do load test cases, but actually we need to handle these filters because I do already have like command line utilities so that I can do things like, that's super cool. It's super fun when I get to do it. Oh, if I can only, there we go. I can do things like run tests --foo. So yeah, unknown option --foo, valid r -s for skipping, so I can skip building, or -k for a like a filter by test case. Actually, run tests. Sorry, valid options are -s, -k, filter by test name, or we'll do curly's here, specific test name. Now if I run that garbage run again, cool. So it's saying you can either skip the build, which means like you know, skip building the C++ code, filter by test name, or you can just run a specific test are the options. So for that to work, I need to be able to pass things through. So we have our filter or we have our specific test name. I don't think I need, okay, that's fine. So test case file. We'll do test cases. Where is that? Darn it. Fine. We'll just call it test cases. It's a little bit shorter. There. Just a little bit of renaming. So this says file names. For name in file name. Expected OCR results for that file name. Got you. Gotcha. So we're loading the contents as expected OCR results. So we can just do a lookup, which means we basically take this slug here, basically, and then go into this dictionary and look it up by that name, and we'll get the text. Yeah, I guess that makes sense, especially since I have multiple tests that like share the same thing. Oh, I didn't finish this here. So I do have two scenarios here. I need to handle... I might break it out on its own test, but for now, let's just nuke this. And let's make this an array. And we're going to do Hobbit P98. So in theory, what this would mean is we would run how would I want this to work? Because because I want to be able to test page flipping. I mean, I guess for now, I can just do this. I might refactor this again later. I'm trying to think of what the user interface would be for me as the developer of like, how do I want to interact with this thing? Like this tells me that it's just going to work on. Can I do that? You know, that it's just going to work on. What if I do this? Oh, cool. Okay, that works. It's just going to work on the one file, and that should operate as normal. But if I put 2 in the list, I think what that means is, well, I guess along the way, we could look up each. All right, we have a problem here. Because I want this test suite to handle both page 1 and page 2. And in this, so I could do this in such a way. You know what? Screw it. Let's nuke this. Let's go crazy. It's got to load images multiple times. And I also have logic to like clear out the test suite, right? So when we finish a test, I'll have to go find it. I'm not sure where it is, but somewhere I have it. So, oh, it's probably here. Yeah, if final chunk, we clear it out. Okay, I could do a flag here. Let's just do a flag for now. Multiple pages will make this true. And for most of these, it's going to be false. Kind of shooting from the hip here, but it's fine. It's all okay. Better to make a decision than sit in indecision. So that's fine. Okay, so in this case, but see, that's implied. See, the issue is though, how does it know? I mean, I could do it off the file name here and just say, hey, look, go look for flip 0 and flip 1. But yeah, I don't know how this is going to get coded yet. So in this case, if we're doing a page flip, I don't want to clear it out. So a flag is good for that. But that flag I can set dynamically. I could just say, hey, look, if we've got multiple pages here in this list, like that is what makes this flag true. This flag is set by the fact that there's multiple elements in the array. So we would run the next test. But see, we wouldn't though. We would have to know on run next test. We're going to keep popping the next test case. I mean, I could pass it in. That's kind of ugly, though. Because this whole thing's predicated on a test has a single name, and that name maps to a single folder. And I want each test needs to be encapsulated on its own, because I may want to run this test by itself and this test by itself, and then run them together where this one follows that one to see how the page turning works. Because I may want to test something here in isolation. And I don't want to make something too complicated. I mean, I guess I could give it a... Let's undo that. I don't think I would ever be in a situation where I would want to do multiple page flips. So let's just pretend that's never going to be a scenario for now, just to keep it simple in my head. So, let's call it extra test name. And we'll call it small paragraphs flip one. So that's interesting. So what this could mean I could do test case name. So what if we did something like this? So then the test case name is page flipping. But like the test case name test folder name can be overridden. Maybe if this attribute exists, we'll see. I'm gonna test to see if Godot has easy support for this in its dictionary parsing. But it's like, hey, this name doesn't have to be the same name as the folder over here. So then the test case name can be something more more specific. I don't know. And then I can say, hey, here's the folder that it goes with. So if you're running this test, it's going to go pull in files from this folder. And oh, by the way, the extra test case name. Or you could do something like this. Wait, No, did the wrong thing. It is just that. There we go. Test folder is an option. Let me see if I can make this an optional list. If you don't provide it, it'll just go off of the name. But if you do provide it, then it'll go get these in order. So it'll first do the first one. And then if we're done, if final chunk and this has more of a list to it, then go grab this one as well and run it. Which means then I can do a separate test here. That I can just run this by itself. Which would be, what kind of image is that again? We'll call it what I wanted to call it before, kind of. We'll call it small paragraph break. So small paragraph break will use that folder. Page flip will use both of them. Time will be interesting. But that's fine. This way I could actually say, hey, what would the time be expected to run 2 tests back to back? I don't know. All right, so this is the interface I'm going with for now. Let me bring this up. Just move this around a little bit. Yeah, let's do that. So the folder, and whether or not we're skipping is last. Got a little bit tedious to do all this, but this is fine. I'm not going to do this. I'll just stop there. All right, so let's fix the test harness then. We could do test name string. If test name caught next test name. And we'll do current test case equals that. Current test cases is what again? Current test cases is a string. It's just test names. Okay, cool. Yeah. Right. It's just a string. Else Okay, so now we can optionally pass a specific test name. That won't result in a pop, right? So it's just going to be... Well, actually, am I doing that? No. That was one thought I had. I'm not implementing this. All right, that's fine. Let's just start with parsing. Let's get that there. Taking a quick sip. All right, so these are those files. Let's get those loaded in. Are these correct? Hold on. So that's test result. This test case is... Right. I need a... Hobbit P98. So I do need... Yeah. Okay. I don't really see the reason why I need to do this. I could probably do this step as a different... So what are we doing here? Current test cases dot append. Test name get. Okay, it's because we're looping through that. Fine. So we could do for test name in well, let's just do for test case in test case where are we using test cases again? Come on, what are you? We should be able to get the keys, right? Yeah, this is annoying. What is it? Test cases dot yeah, we do have test cases dot keys. Yeah, so for test case string in dot keys. There we go. So now we're building the names. Gotcha. Okay, so we can do this thing. We can still steal this. Shift tab. And we'll do test name here. So yeah, if we have a filter, so if we've got a filter, then we have to check the filter has to be in the name. Then we append it. If we're doing a specific test, it's got to match perfectly. Otherwise, sure, just add it. If we're not doing filtering or specific tests for filtering, then just add it. Nice. All right, now I'm pretty sure I don't need this function at all. So this can die. Yeah, there's nothing there I need. So a little bit simpler here. And then this, you know, expected OCR, where are you used? So this is the reference text. Right, that's the text. So, let's just do var expected text lookup name equals, we'll just break this out. And that's going to be a string. So then I can do this. I can do boom. Bring this over. And it's going to equal wait, so we can just do if dot key, what do you do? Pass, let's just pass there. Find key, what do you do? Finds and returns the first key whose associated value is equal to value, or null if it's not found. Okay, if not find key, then we'll create a new function. And the new function will be func load test result text for call it file. We'll just do file name, yeah. And this is going to return void. And actually, I don't need any of this now. In fact, I don't need any of that either. This becomes much simpler now. So now we just have the file name. Look it up. If we have read access, I could wrap this in a try except, whatever. It's the test harness. Get the content, shove it in there, and then we would have it. Can I refactor this slightly to be slightly cleaner? We'll just write the initial version. See, this is logging results. Instead of adding complexity to logging results, like logging results should be able to just do this blindly and it should work. So let's pull this out, because that is not the job of logging results. Logging results should just assume everything's there. Run next test case, however, it should have a thing. So we create our test folder, load debug images. Yeah, so this is where really we should be doing it. And we have our current test case here, by the way. So let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of the if check. But we can actually here we go. We'll put it here. So if it's not there, then we do it. Let this control whether or not it's there or not. So we'll just quickly skip, if we've already loaded it. We'll short circuit out of that. That's fine. Which means now this if check's not needed. We can just do a load. We can nuke that as well. Cool. So now we have a single line that we've added here to go load the results. If we've already loaded it, it'll skip it. And then nothing else changed. So it just means we're going to load it dynamically. Which also means then load test case is a little bit simpler because we don't have to worry about looping over that list of files or whatever. We'll just do it dynamically as we go. And that also means if we're running a single test, we're only going to load the test results for that test. We're not going to load all of them into memory. There's no need to. All right, this might work. Now we got skip. Right, so if test cases test name skip equals true, continue. Let's do game state dot, or wait, we just have logger here now, right? Logger. Yeah, there we go. Logger. Skipping test. Testing. So I should be able to test this right now, and it should just work. And it should be super fast. And it should be, so we'll do dash skip for skipping the build. And there should be no errors, and we should just skip this test. Division by 0 error because we didn't run any tests. Skipping test align frames. So we didn't run it. We just did a continue. Now, if I do dash K align, we should run one test, which will just be this one, but we'll skip this one. So we should only see one test run. And we shouldn't see any test results, right? Why is this here? It's the 22nd, right? At 11:01, why did we write this here? This should have been written to a folder that had its... Oh, because we did a specific test run, but we still should have had a folder created for it. Could not create directory align frames. Okay, something got broken there. Still, we ran the single test. It scored as expected, albeit a bit slower. Well, a bit slower because we were writing files. What went wrong here? XR failed to load, that's fine. That's expected. Register types. Oh, that's the OpenXR module register types, not mine. That's theirs. The built-in one. That's fine. All right, skipping test. I'm not going to keep this there. I'll remove it. Creating folder, but there's no timestamp. All right, so this isn't needed. Creating folder, folder path. Running test align frames. Current root folder. I'm just slightly confused because I thought I had this all disabled when we ran. If we run the whole test suite. We run the whole test suite, what happens? Nothing, right? Because we shouldn't be doing anything. Still creating folder, okay. Fine, we do that whole thing. Run a new test, right? And we don't try to create the folder. why do I not have then a... What? Did I not save also? That's also a problem, but... Creating folder. Why would it be creating the... It shouldn't be creating the folder every time. Did I change something I shouldn't have? Let me see here. Let's do a git diff. That can get nuked. Load result. Oh, why'd I change that? Huh. Okay, that's slight chance that's a problem, but probably not, right? Yeah, this might be wrong. No, that's probably fine. But that's the test cases. Yeah, no, it has to be the expected result. That won't work because that's going to be... Huh? Hold on. Oh, because that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, expected test results doesn't exist. Right, because I renamed it. All right, so this was a correct change here. Load test cases, that's fine. Did I do anything here with dates? So date. Date, time. Current root folder is that. Gotcha. Okay, I think I need to bring that back. Because current root folder is used there. Right. Got it. each test run gets its own folder. I should have known, that's why I did that. Load in our metadata. Fine. Okay, so that's fine. If I do this now, so that can go. If I run a line now, so it will create the folder. And it will write images to it. But if I run skip and I just run the whole test suite, it's not supposed to do that. Okay, well, it failed here anyway, but why is that? Did I do something here where, let's see here, on ready, is debug files is false. Oh, I think I know why. Right, so if we're running with a specific test, we pass that flag. If we are doing a filter, we pass the filter. If we're running all tests, then we turn off the noisy, we turn off logs and we turn off. Got you. Okay, so if I'm filtering, I guess I've largely been filtering to get one test, but I could see, look, if I'm doing filtering, I'm probably going to run multiple tests, in which case maybe I should also skip files and skip logs. All right, so that's why that's happening. What do we got here? Gotcha. So we don't even end up creating the folder, which is weird. Because there is still that bit of logic that says that we should be creating the folder, but we just don't, I guess. Yeah. This says it was going to create the folder. But then it fails to create the folder. Makedir fails. Errors 20. What up, Yoshi? How you doing? It's going well. Just working on sort of a test suite for this VR app that I'm working on that uses the Passthrough camera on the MetaQuest headset. So because I'm using the Passthrough camera and I don't want to have to put on the headset every time I want to test my code, I've got folders here that contain images from the VR headset. So I can kind of just load them in with a test suite, run my Godot GD script logic as well as C++ GD extension that does OCRing. So it does all this stuff. And so yeah, I'm doing work so that I can save myself more work later, which is the either best or worst type of work, depending on how you feel. So I'm not actually coding on my app this morning. I'm more working on the test suite, improving it, adding new test cases, letting it handle, since I'm dealing with books, letting it handle multiple page turns so you can flip pages of the book and run it that way. So, yeah. Just have to get to work on learning more about QuickShell soon. I'm not familiar with QuickShell. Yeah, the project I think it's an interesting project. So it would let you read physical books in VR. So you'd be able to take a book off the shelf, open it in front of you, and it'll match the soundscape and scenery around you to the content of the book. Is basically what I'm building. Someone to chill with. Well, you're more than happy to hang out and chill while I code. Someone to chill with before I get to that. Yep. So it failed to write the folder, but why? Testing, test results, create folder. Is it maybe because... Oh, I think I know why. This is me being tricksy. So much to make here in a bit. lot of work to do. I think what I'm doing is, if this is false, I pass that in. Wait, hold on. Current root folder. Where do I use you? Sure. Okay. Current folder. Yeah. Okay, so here's what's happening. If we're skipping debug images, we don't actually have that. That folder doesn't exist yet. So when we call this, for this scenario, it's trying to write this folder. But since this folder doesn't already exist, and it would only exist if the backend C++ code wrote something to that folder, then it fails. I guess the one hack would be hack/safeguard, because debug files is a thing, right? Yeah. So where is the... Right, so we have a debug files check here. Hello, where are you? Ready? Seriously? Create folder. Yeah, where's create folder? Okay. I'll just do that there. Fine. So if the directory exists and where debugging files is true, then try to write to it. Otherwise, we just won't write to it. And the reality is, like, we just won't get this failure message. That's what that means. All right, so in theory, that's working. Let me try running again the whole test suite. And I guess I'll just be failure driven, right? We'll just, as failures happen, I'll go fix them. Okay, so we no longer get that error about failing to create the folder. We just don't create the folder, which is what I want. And then we run through all this, get the multiple chunks of text parsed by OCR. Then we start working on our second test. Error, invalid type and function load test result text. So we only call that in 2 spots. I mean, the first time we call it, it works fine, right? So, and I know it works fine because we got a score of 76. We would have gotten a score of 0 if it didn't work. Oh, it's an array, right? Yes. Okay. Angled page 1 only. That is okay. We can close this. Oh, funny. I never made this an array. That's why it worked. So that should have failed sooner. All right, so it needs to be an array. So that's fine. I can make this. Let's call that file names. And then we'll do for file name, which is a string in file names. And we'll do the whole thing. So that way then we'll iterate over these lists. Most of the time it's just one, but other times it'll be many for the text. Cool. By the way, let's test our -k align. And we should create a folder, only this time it should be a timestamp folder. Cannot convert argument. Huh? What you mean? Cool. Vague error is my favorite. Let's see. Let me expand this a little bit. Invalid type in function. Cannot convert argument 1 from array to string. 86. Oh, because it's an array of strings. Now it should be fine. So it actually enforces typing. Interesting, we get this error back. Failed to create folder. Doesn't have the same type. Because we don't know what its type is, because we didn't really declare that. Fine. Expected type. What if we just do array? Fine. Now it'll probably be happy. There we are. Now it does create the folder. It fails to create And that is, what, 1125, right? And there's all the images. Cool. All right. More errors to investigate. Division by 0, fine. Let's see here. One bug at a time. So it's still getting this failed to create error. File access, right? Wait, dir access. Fine, so let's do Godot dir access. What does that say in the logs? Make dir. What are our options here? Because I'm using make dir, right? Make dir. Make dir recursive, maybe? Creates a target directory and all necessary intermediate directories in its path by calling make dir recursively. Right. So if I do that, that should solve that error also of the parent directory thing. Now, I guess the folder gets, I think I do make dir recursive on the back end. I think also this is just one of those things where I don't need to do this step at this point. I don't need to create the folder. So if I run it now, like we create the folder. And we write all the images. And I don't get the error probably. But what if I just don't do it? I suspect this step is just not needed. So if I run it again, yeah, the step's just not needed. Does anybody use this? No. All right, I'll rip it out. Current folder is used lower. I think at one point I was writing files from Godot directly, but now I think pretty much all the file writing I do is from C++. So that's probably why. This is kind of a relic of the past. So this just doesn't need to happen because I'm passing that flag down. All right, so that's one error down. Let me clear that out. And then what's the next error? OCR results done. And that's going to be an OCR manager, right? No, it's going to be in game state. Right. Then we call page text update. Invalid access to property or key on a base object of type dictionary. Test suite 100. Okay, so invalid access to property or key. So we've got test cases, which is a dictionary, and we call load test cases is the JSON object of the file. So it's this file. And on line 100, we're saying, oh, current test case maybe, no. Oh, right, because the text is a list now. Right. Sure. So this is where I have to figure out some of this logic. So log individual test results. Right, well, so for starters, we could just do 0. And that'll get the test to pass. But then when I move on to like my page flipping test, I'll have to fix that to something else, make it smarter. Right. There. And there's the results of the test. Cool. Delete. And now if I run the whole test suite, we shouldn't get a folder here. And in theory, we'll get a whole test report with some wonky results now. Or new errors, one or the other. Hopefully the test suite's largely back to where it was. And then if I get this done, if I get the test suite working with these new test cases, I'll merge this, and then the next thing I'll probably do is version bump Godot. Try doing that again, because the latest version of Godot does have some nice things that I would love to have, some nice toys. And in theory, then that'll be the last thing I gotta do. What are we at right here on our task tracker? So grab new images for page 2 test case. Yep, I can do page 2. Grab new images of, well, I went with both books. Title paragraph, yep. Ending page or blank page on page 1, yep. Page change test. Okay, so I've got test images for all those. And then grab new images for page 2 main focus. Do things break if reader is hyper focus on page 2? I think I've got that scenario covered as well. So with that, assuming I can get these test scenarios running, I'll leave this one unchecked just because I need to get these things working. This can get merged. I can maybe try version bumping Godot. Here, let's do Godot to version 4.5. Yeah, because I am on 4.5, but it's 4.5 dev 4, and the last time I tried to bump, something bad happened. All right, this hanging here. Weird. All right, so let's see here. Align scored a 76 as it should. Angled, I don't see any errors. Angled scored a 94.6 as it's supposed to. The good test, which is not actually a good test, is a 91.3. Yep. New chapter should score a 0. Ooh. New chapter. Oh, yeah, this one's going to fail hard. Yeah, it's going to, of course, it's going to find. It's going to error. Yeah, okay. But that's as kind of expected. And it scores a 0. I don't have text for it. Even if I did have text for it, it would still score a 0 probably. Shaky leg. Show me that 92.9. Ooh, I think that maybe its score went up slightly, at least here. And then small paragraph break. Choked. Okay. But you're the last, right? Cool. So you're a new test. Ah, it failed because its name is not its name. Its name is a different name. So this is that new feature I need to implement. Yeah, test suite 176. Folder. Load debug images. Test case source. Current test case. And I want this to be that. I want it to be running test, the name of the test here. All right, so we can do var test case folder equal, and that's gonna be a string. And we'll set that equal to was it test cases test folder. If test cases current test case dot key. What now? Else, let's do it like that. Test folder not declared. Huh? Oh. Quote. Dot key. Fine. Test cases. Current test case. Dot key. Dot. Come on. What are you? It's a dictionary. Sorry, fine. Far foo dictionary equals. I hate when it does that kind of substitution. All right, foo dot find key. Right. Yeah, I think I found that. All right, I could do this. I think I can do it this way. So I can do find key on that. Ternary operators are cute, but They can be overly verbose and complicated sometimes. And then I can do if not test case folder, then test case folder is going to equal current test case. Right. And then that'll be the folder is going to be that. Test case source. I think it's that, right? Current folder. Why do I have current folder being passed there and then test case source? What is test case dir? Right. Current folder. Oh, I think I know. Okay. Right. It's just the source. We still want the output to be the name that we're using here. All right, so now this one, -k, small paragraph break. Now this test should work. And we can check its output. Nope. Find key. Whoa. Huh? What? Invalid call to find key. Oh, right. Find key. Oh, find key. Sorry. That. There we go. Now it should work. I am out of coffee, switching to water. Trying to assign value of type nil to a variable of type string. Really? So you're gonna be like that, are you? Or? Can we do or? Does that work? That'll be nice if it does. Because that's, you know, similar to a ternary operator, but without being as verbose. Trying to assign value of type bool to variable types. Ugh. Fine. Okay. Fine. Let's do the inverse. We can do this. We'll initialize it that way. If this is true, then we can then we'll set it to test folder. All right, so we default with our assumption that it's going to be the name of the test case. But if it turns out that the key exists, then we'll override. Now it really, really, really should work. No! What? Okay, what's going on? 180. All right, so I think we're hitting branches on the tree. Where's 180? Where are we at on time, by the way? Load debug images. Cannot call method on null value. Small paragraph break. Logger folder. Since I cannot, for the life of me, do breakpoints on the test suite just yet, and I'm not barking up that tree today, I'll just have to do it the ugly way. Small paragraph break. Okay, so we still try going with small paragraph break, even though we shouldn't have. Test case source should be test case folder. Logger. Really? We don't have it? We have to call string on this. Null. Huh. Okay. Why would that be? Right. So, test folder text. So find key on that. Find key test folder. Really? Var case dictionary equals, fine, let's just do this. And then we're going to do logger, and we'll do this plus string of whatever we're going to put in. And it'll, in this case, it'll be case dot find key. Let's kill that. Bring this up here. Drop that down. Skip question mark, and then we'll do skip. So it should have skip. We can do score. Score. Maybe I'm just using this wrong. Folder. Null, null, null. They just don't exist. Excuse me, what is find key supposed to do exactly? Finds and returns the first key whose associated value. No, yeah. Does find key just not work? So this is always going to fail. At least I used this here earlier, and it seems like that's always going to be false. Godot, what are you doing to me? We have dictionary. Here, dictionaries. Fine. Find key. If inside the dictionary, find key may give misleading results. Okay, but we do have a get. So what do we have? What about get? And oh, by the way, I'll do get on this. So in theory, it'll return null for that, which get actually would be better. I'd rather do a get. I didn't think they had a get for some reason. So that's my bad. False, 92, and it gets the value. Right, so don't use find key. But this also means get. So if we fail to get it, so get is a safe, for those who aren't familiar, it's like, and this is always true of like dictionaries in most languages. You could do this. You can just do direct access to get the thing from the dictionary. But if it doesn't exist, so in the case of here we have test folder, but here this one doesn't have it, this will throw an exception. But doing .get has an implied default of like, you know, in Python it might be none. In GDScript it's going to be null. So by default, if you try to get it but it doesn't exist, it'll return null. But you don't need to do that, right? It'll just return null. But you could also say, you know, default. You can return a default value or whatever it is you're looking for. So in my case, I'm going to try to get it. So if we can't get it, then that means we got to load it. So that's fine. And let's go to our gets. Fine, okay. I'll go hunt for it the old-fashioned way. All right, so I shouldn't need any of this now. Let me test this once. Well, let me finish writing this. So, case here not used. I think now what this means is I can actually do the best version of this. Where I can do the default return of that. So now we can say, look, the folder name we try to do a lookup, and if we can't get test folder, if that doesn't exist in the dictionary, then we default back to the name. Beautiful. This is what I wish I had from the beginning, and apparently I did have it, and I just didn't know it. Real quick though, let me, here, let's go with a line. Because a line doesn't have it, let's make sure that still works. Just on the off chance that Godot's get on GDScript doesn't behave right. And I think it worked fine. Yeah, and we finished. Beautiful. No issues. Cool. Now if we go to small paragraph, that should fail because of an array when it's expecting a string. Ah, gross. Okay, so I can't do this. Okay, that's fine. We're back to the same problem. Um, because this is an array. And I can't assign array to string. So I think we're back to the same logic, right? We defaulted to that. If we can get this, then we assign it. And we go with the 0th element. And in fact, we don't need the dot get now. Since we already did, oh, come on, why must you do that? There we go. Since we already did the dot get here, we can just access it because it's guaranteed to be there. Clean that up. And now this will work. And now it's going to fail for some other reason. Oh yeah, look at that. No, it didn't fail. It's got a horrible score, which is expected. Got a 15%. What is small paragraph? Yeah, that's small paragraph break is Hobbit page 96. And another one in blue flames. Yep, that's right. And then the very end of it, from their gate. Cool. So this is right. Let's do control insert. And this is Hobbit 96. All right. Ship insert. There we go. And then, oh, can I? We're in Vim here. I don't know if I can, well, no, percent bang s slash space slash g. Well, let's remove spaces. Did that work? If we substitute spaces for underscores, I'm doing something wrong here. Is it bang percent s? Whoa. Vim, search, and replace. How am I doing this wrong? Find and replace in Vim, or maybe it's just on Mac, it's not. Oh, just a colon? Oh, this is for like Python to do the... Okay. There should be a global flag, right? Oh, that's G. Higher file percent. Oh, okay. I just didn't need the bang. The bang is the shebang. I think is for Python. Okay. Yeah. So then I can just do this. Yeah. Not quite. We want to replace it with nothing. There we go. All right. And here we go. So I do need to fix this. Right now it'll say it's 100%. Yeah, so that should be a quote. Yeah, fine. Sure. I'll need to go through and fix all the spelling mistakes, but hey, at least I got something there. And in fact, if I run it again, now we should get like 99% matching on it. And did it write any files? That's a good question. So this would have been 1157. That might have been this one here. There we are. Small paragraph breaks. We properly visualize. How does the cropping look? That looks pretty good. We chunk it. Oh, final crop. Yeah, that looks pretty readable. I don't know, actually, it looks a little blurry to my eyes. There may be a mistake in there somewhere. Enhanced rescale. So we have 2 final crops. Why do we have 2 final crops? Oh, because of page 2? Yes, okay, because we did page 2, even though we're not scoring page 2 right now. So here are the chunks. Here's the binarization. Actually, that binarization looks pretty good. I mean, all things considered. Actually, I mean, honestly, I'll say the binarization isn't as good as I'd like it to be. It's too blocky, but that's okay. Right. Right then. Awesome. I'll probably fix this up to create folders so that once we get to this point where we're chunking and things, or we're doing like, actually even like the cropping and such, we should be putting this into page 0, page 1, page 2, page 3 kind of thing. Because once we get to tests like this, we're going to end up processing 4 pages, which means we'll have twice as many images as this. And if I'm actually doing some debugging, it would be nice to, like, even with the chunks here, then we're going to have 16 chunks that we're processing. Might be a little bit much to look at. Yeah, look at that, 99.5 or 99.95, and I changed a single character, and that's why it's off by a bit. I wonder if I change that character back. Actually, yeah, for the heck of it. Where is that? It was here, right? The what is all this uproar? There's a star, right? Yeah, let me leave it at 100%. That way it'll remind me that mistakes were made. Cool, so that's looking good. I can do that for the other page. Page is plural, and get that test result in pretty quickly with doing the quick substitution. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. 100% score. Amazing. It's perfect. It's perfect OCR. You can always hit the bullseye as long as you paint a bullseye around the shot you take. All right, what's next? So that works. That means this test scenario should be fine. This test scenario will also be fine. I can do that off camera. Where are we at time-wise? Let me take a sip. I may want to stop soon. I think I probably should stop soon. Get some lunch and things. All right, so this test case will also be fine. I just need to, again, just run it, grab its text, dump it in, then go proofread and fix all the mistakes. Same thing with this one. That one's also good. That means then what we're left with is flipping. So what do we do when we have flipping? So run next test. Yeah, in this case, I'm grabbing the 0th element from the list. But what I really need is, so if page number 0. So, okay, so for right now, so there's two things I got to handle. There's a couple things I want to handle. The one issue is, right now we only OCR and we only score the first page. So for all these tests here, it's only the left side of the book that we are scoring. I'm thinking now I might need a refactor, right? Because I could just as simply add a flag saying whether or not we just want to do the left page or we just want to do the right page or we want to do both, right? But then we end up with like a bunch of lists, right? Like where we end up with like, this is a list and this is a list and then this is a list because we have two scores, right? We have the score for this and we have the score for that, which also has a score for this, and you know, like, and then the time for this versus the time for that. And maybe we skip this one, but we don't skip that one, right? Like, so maybe, maybe. Either this is a list of tests. So let's game it out. Let's refactor and game out how this would look. So one approach could be is we make this a list. So it's 4 test in tests. And each test is a dictionary. And it would have its folder. And it would have its page. Which means this one can kind of just get broken down to that. So now if we did this, we would have 2 tests in here. And we could skip them individually, right? So I could say, hey, look, just skip page 0. Let me think. I mean, optionally, we may want to do something like page 0 here, right? We might be able to infer it. But the backend knows, right? The backend, when it sends up events, it says processing page 0 chunk 3, right? So we know which page we're on because when we OCR, we send that metadata up. So this would be the test name. We then go get the test data and here's the expected output text, and here's the score for it. And we could also optionally skip it individually. Or I could just like delete this and just run page 1. It would be as simple as that. I kind of like this. It's still all under the same test name, right? So that test name, it's just that this test like runs multiple pages. I believe the only question in my head is, does Godot maintain array list order? Let's see here. Godot array. Arrays, order. Makes the array read-only. Oh, make read-only. The array's elements cannot be overridden with different values, and their order cannot change. Does not apply to nested elements such as dictionaries. Does not I love that. Does not apply to nested elements. But like, is the order of the dictionaries maintained? Or are you just saying the order of elements within the dictionary aren't maintained? Reverse. Reverse the order of all elements in the array. In a random order. Slice. Sorts in an order. Alright, I think I can assume that order will be maintained. Python, for instance, their arrays, their lists are ordered, but it's ordered by accident. There's like, you're not supposed to rely on it because they happen to be ordered, but they never intended for them to be. It was like not part of the contract. Like your contract with them is not that we guarantee that these lists will always be ordered. It just happens to be true. Kind of like funny situation there. All right, so maybe I'll implement this instead. I'll keep this around. I'll call it page flip hold. Skip true. Just because I don't want to run it right now. So maybe this is the way, which means now we don't have to wrap all these nonsense ones in a... And, you know, we could, if we wanted to, get rid, like instead of wrapping the whole thing in an array, we could do something like this where we check for its type. Like if it's an array, parse it. If it's a single element, treat it like a single element. This is fine though. I think I will go with this approach. This is the most flexible. This would then queue me up to allow for, you know, if I really wanted to handle like multiple page flips, maybe there's some weird edge case bug that I run into eventually that requires like another flip. Okay, actually, so what this actually would be is this. We would end up with page 1. The test folder, I can keep this here, but it shouldn't matter because we would have already loaded it. We already have the images. If it's a page 1, we should already have it. And then the text is going to be like page 1. So we would do something like, or actually no, page 97. That's the expected output text. That's right? Because we have... Yeah, there's page 96, all fixed up. So then I can just do page 97 and give it its own score. Which means then I can do this. And we got page 0. And now this is flip 1. And I can rename these if I want to. And now that's going to be page 98 and 99. Because this will be page 0. Gotcha. So I can run all these. all in one shot. All part of this one test suite. I don't like that I'm doing this all in JSON. I'd rather like a test suite. I don't know. The argument would be, should I change how this works and like just make test cases and have like on ready, like go find those test cases and then I could run them one by one. And like run next test is this like this in theory is just one test, right? Where, well, I mean, I guess the closed tree, we have some wrapping logic, right? There's still wrapping logic, but really the test is, what is the test, right? Instead of having to load this, like you could, right? Name the loading. Load the debug images, set the images manually, trigger the scan, wait for it to finish. The problem is I can't do this because I'm still relying on Godot's signals to pick up the results from the backend GD extension, since it runs as a parallel process, which means I have to write my tests in an asynchronous way. Because I would have to do something like trigger scan and then wait for signal result. I mean, I could do that, right? Like we could just here set the, like, do the OCR text, like call this, and then set these values just so we have them, and then set a flag true. Would that work? And then I could do trigger scan here and then like do like a wait statement where we wait and we loop and wait for that flag to be true, because I've done that logic before. Is that true? See, I don't want to do this. I mean, I kind of want to, but that would allow me to write tests in GD script, and then I could actually like write out a test instead of doing this sort of, and then I could do like specific checks, right? Like I could run this part of the test, check certain outputs, compare the score or whatever. I think I'm going to stay the course here and do this, because I don't think my test suite needs to be any more complicated than this. I'm really just words I'm going to regret. I am really just keeping it this simple. All right, so if we do page flipping, and who knows, maybe as part of running this, let's just run it and watch it fail. Yeah, it's going to fail immediately. Yeah, it's an array because it's not a dictionary anymore. So, I don't know. As I go down this hole, I may figure out a different approach. Yeah, I guess what I do need to have happen is I do need to completely OCR these two pages, have those results come up, set their values, and then when we run the next page and run, when we set the new, we would set the new images, run it again, and then we would expect those pages to get replaced. This also opens me up to like a non-page flip, where I can run this, but then like run it again, and instead like run it on lower quality images. So actually, in that case, I would probably go back to this old test case and go grab like, I don't know, like this is like the best scoring test. So if I ran this one, like load those images and then load the good images, this score is higher. So I would expect it not to replace them. And then I could test to make sure that that's true. Test to make sure that the finals... Right now, my way of doing that would be to test to make sure that the final score is still 94, even though good ran second. And then I could also do the opposite. Run good first, run this second, and confirm again that the score is still 94. So that's 2 more test cases that I could run that, again, are really just this, like, run it twice kind of thing. Okay. My brain's a little cooked on this for a moment. I think I probably need to eat lunch, let this sit in the back of my head and decide what to do. I don't want to spend too much more time on this. I really just want these test cases to be in place so that as I go fix these issues with these, like, one, I want test cases to verify, like, this, some of this logic works. So page flipping's working. I want a test case to lock that in. I have it working where if we rescan a page, but the previous scan was better, like, we stick with the previous scan. So, like, that scenario works. So I want a test case for that. And then the inverse is already true as well, right? Where if you have you have like an okay scan, and then the next scan is better, it replaces it. So all this currently works in the app. I just want test cases to lock that in so that if I break something, my test harness yells at me. Right now, my test harness is all built around this idea of giving us a score. And I'm really just producing a report and then expecting, like, the numbers, the average score to be a certain number. My test suite isn't currently like a pass-fail type test suite. Yeah. So maybe this is a different type of test altogether. This whole, like, run page 1, flip the page, like, set the images new, and assert that, like, the new stuff still holds up. I mean, I can do it under this, but it's like a different purpose. Like, this is this test report is all about how good we OCR. Whereas now that I'm getting into, like, this kind of thing, this is really more about, is the business logic given a score? And in fact, I am already set up for this, right? Because I already have methods for, like, so this just adds page, was it OCR manager? Yeah, right? So we already have, like, if score is better than other score type stuff. And that's all within this function. So I could do that as a proper unit test. I could instead save off XML text with these values and just call this function multiple times very quickly and validate that our final page, like the page that we set, is the correct page. We also have this, like, yeah, we get a page. Yeah. We only do this here. Is that true? No. Yes, the other good thing about testing when you do proper testing is it forces you to write better code. So when I think about like how do I test this properly, it actually then leads me down the path of like, well, hey, arguably this should be its own method that can be tested independently. In theory, like this could be mocked. This function call could be mocked to return a certain thing. Although working with XML is probably my best bet, even though I do have to create these class instances over and over again because, well, we would need a mock, be able to start creating fixtures, and like let's just re-implement all of a whole testing suite. Yeah, I don't want to do that. There are testing tools out there for Godot. I could look into them again. I was trying to avoid that for now. Yeah. Let me stew on this. There's a chance that maybe this is not... I shouldn't be using the test suite in this way to run multiple. Like, really, should it just be you only ever run on one page? And maybe we tell it which page, right? Are we looking for page 0 or page 1? I mean, since we know, since we know that the image is going to have both, I could just have like a page 1 true, page 0 true, and then that would allow us to do that. Okay, well, anyway, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to think more on this and decide what I want to do. Again, I'm trying to do the minimal amount of work, just enough to handle these test cases. And more, I guess I'll have to think about, let me add a task for this. And I'm putting it down here to lower in the not started place, but unit testing. Let me just gather my thoughts here. The current test suite is more focused on OCR scores for a given page. We do have a lot of test scenario situations now where we want to test things like bullet. Page 2 does in fact OCR after page 1, let's say. We re-OCR a page and the new result is better. We re-OCR a page and the new page is worse. We've flipped the page, and so the OCR result should be new. The current test harness can sort of handle this, but not ideal. These tests are more pass-fail, as opposed to score above threshold. All right, so I think I need a unit testing at some point. Look into Godot testing tools. There are several. Yeah, because this is really going to be mostly GD script testing. I could eventually try to unit test the C++ code, but that is, I don't really want to think about that. Most of my, once that's solid, in reality, like the test harness, just by getting these decent scores and getting like, if anything breaks in the back end, I'll know. Because a lot of that is like, this is the pass fail, right? If this number drops too much. I mean, I've gotten rid of this test now, so really we're at like 90 is where our current, so really if we drop below 90, like I know something broke on the back end. It'll be blatantly obvious if OCR fails. So yes, I could unit test it, but really where I'm more worried about unit testing is on the GD script side, where, you know, some botched logic here could result in some weird behavior. So being able to do better unit testing of this stuff is more valuable. So this test suite, I do want to be able to run this test suite as it is without changing it much. The brain work I said I was going to do during lunch, I'm kind of doing it right now. So I want this to largely run on its own without much change. I have the ability to run tests individually. I'm missing a little bit of logic to say whether or not this test is yeah, like what I want to be able to do is this. Yeah, but see, here we go. We have like, fine. Yeah, see, again, I have this problem now. Yeah, see, what I would probably do, what I would probably do then is this. I would probably do this. And then what we would do is this. Bad question mark? So page flipping. In theory, we would do this. Yeah. Tell it which page it is, page 0. Here's the folder where it gets it from. Here's the test result, right? And then we could do page flipping left page. Right, and then we would just do, if I wanted to test the right page. Now the issue with doing it this way, we would do like 97. The problem with doing it this way, it is flatter, a little bit cleaner. We would reload the images twice. We would re-OCR twice. Now, it is only taking 3 seconds, but again, that'll add up. We do end up, we are maintaining different scores between each, which is a good thing. You know, you could, inside of here, add an array, right? Like, of test cases. And then that way we'd have like the 2 scores and the 2 texts and the 2, right? Kind of getting back to this sort of thing. But then we would have an array of scores, an array of times, an array of texts. We wouldn't have an array of test folders. There would just be one. So this would be an array and these two would be an array. Or again, we make a single array, and inside that array is like two objects, text, score, time. The other approach would be, so we could just do it like page 0. Just make that result. Let's call it that. And we would just do this. Whoa. What'd you do? There we go. We do page 1 result. Why did that do that? Okay, no complaints. Right. And then we would do 97. And then I could then individually skip each one. So I could do, like, if I just didn't want to have it at all, I could just delete it and then just have page 1 result. So then what we would do is when this test case runs, we'd load in the images, we'd OCR, and then we would ignore the initial chunks from page 0 and just not do anything with them. Either because this doesn't exist or because this is skip true. But then when the chunks come in for the right page, then we'd be okay. And we wouldn't need this page check here. We would just do this. We do left page. I've been doing page 0, page 1, but I probably should change that. Change away from 0, 1, because it is just always going to be left and right. That's really what they are. So then the text, score. You know, I like this. I like the look of this. So this would allow us to do optional left and right tests on everything. And it just wouldn't handle page flipping. Page flipping would be the only thing we wouldn't be able to properly test with this. And maybe I'm okay with that. Maybe I just don't test page flipping for now. Or, again, like I come over here and I run this whole thing. We don't do the exit tree. Well, maybe before this, I can run unit tests. So this would be the load testing, the OCR quality testing. I could do to do run simple unit tests here. I could add a flag to the test suite to skip those, just like we're doing other skipping. These would run fast. This would be like, we would call a function somewhere in this file. And those tests could actually just be straight up GD script. And all they would call over and over again, they'd just be calling like OCR manager. You know, maybe they load XML from a file somewhere, but they would call this multiple ways. I mean, you could even mock it, right? You could set up the existing page to have a score. You know, best page dot score. Best page is what again? Where's best page? Oh, alt page. Yeah. So we could just set page 1 to be an OCR page, call this function, set its score and just as a unit just verify that this worked. And then you'd know, yeah, I could do a bunch of different unit testing, basically, here. And then we do the load test, like we load these tests and run the load tester. I don't know, it's not really load testing, it's, yeah, whatever. These are async tests. Well, you know, load async tests, right? Because these are the tests that have to run in this kind of loop where they run forever. And then when they're done, right now, yeah, still, just because I don't want to refactor it, still then do this final step here, which is why these would run last. But I could do unit tests before then. Okay. Maybe that's the solution. I think I'm going to go with that. That feels right to me. I'll leave this here for now as reference. That's going to get deleted. And then I'll refactor the top of this to look more like this. Okay. That'll be it. And that shouldn't take long for me to implement. Because this approach, I think, is very simple. I'm already like 90-ish% the way there. And then the unit testing, I mean, I could skip it for now if I really wanted to still. I just might, just because I don't know how hard it is going to be to test. But actually, this doesn't feel too bad. All right, well, anyway. Thank you all for hanging out with me. Yoshi, hope you enjoy working on Quick Shell. Enjoyment. And I will probably not stream on Wednesday. I think I've got a conflict. So the next time I might stream might be Monday, like a week from now. But by then, hopefully, this will be done. Hopefully, by then, I've also version bumped Godot, and then actually, we'll be turning a new page, so to speak, pun intended, and working on something new. Something new. Yeah, we're gonna move on. Something new. Cool. All right. Well, if I don't chat with you, have a good week.